Hello everyone, this is Daniel from Daniel and MIKEL'S English lesson. One of the things many students have been asking me lately is what is the deal with the Ielts speaking test? Many people around the world do this test for many reasons. Some of them do it because they want to get another job, others because their school is requiring it. So I decided to do this little video and sort of break down one of the most difficult parts based on what I've heard from students, which is the speaking test. Okay, well, the Ielts test can come in two modalities. It's either the general test or the academic test. So what I'm going to do right now is give a brief overview of the structure of the test and the scoring system. So without further ado, let's begin with the structure of the test. The speaking test in the Ielts exam is an interview or a conversation in which one examiner and one candidate interact linguistically. The function of the examiner is to assess your ability to communicate effectively in English. Now, when it comes to structure, usually the speaking part lasts about between 11 to 14 minutes. It is composed of 3 parts, and all of the parts of the test are recorded. The examiner controls the time and will tell you when to begin and when to finish your task. The examiner is always assessing, so please make sure to speak very clearly, to speak audibly, and to answer the questions as completely as you can. The other issue here about the speaking part, which I'm going to talk about, is the 3 separate parts of the speaking test, okay? The first part is about introductions and personal information. Here, the examiner will introduce him or herself and will check your identity, who you are, where you come from, etc., right? Then he'll ask you some questions about familiar topics. It could be something about your home, about your work, your studies, life in general, or any kind of interest that you may have. Basically, what they're assessing here is your ability to recall experience, previous experience and information. So that's the first part of the speaking exam. The second part is what people call the individual long term. This is about 3 to 4 minutes, and here you need to speak for 1 or 2 minutes without interruption. The examiner will select a range of topics, and you will have to describe an experience, a period, or event in your life. You need to be in this part, and I really want to emphasize this, the fact that you need to be very descriptive and answer all the questions, which happen to be mostly WH questions. So it's either going to ask you about who, where, when, how, and why about any specific topic, okay? In this part, what I tell students is that outlining is very important. Now here, the examiner will give you a task card, a little card, and you will have a minute to talk. To prepare what you're going to say. After that, and after you allot some time to each idea, you will have to talk for 2 minutes without interruption, and you have to try to describe as closely as possible everything that's in the task to describe. Okay, usually what I tell my students, and these are different ways to begin, but usually I tell them to begin an introduction or a restatement of the question. It's very important, the use of cohesive devices or linking words, as some people call it. The thing is that you have to showcase your vocabulary range and showcase your accuracy. So it's very important that you highlight many words that you know, but also that you're able to choose the appropriate word according to the situation. Okay, the next thing at the end of the speaking test in this part would be the wrap-up. So it's very important that you're sensitive to time and that you conclude your ideas in the time that is given to you. In other words, make sure that you close the circle. Okay, be ready because the examiner may ask 1 or 2 extra questions regarding the topic. So always have a plan B just in case this happens. Okay, now the next part of the speaking test, part 3, is a two-way discussion situation in which the examiner will assess with further discussion type questions things that are related to the topic that you saw in part 2. Here you have to develop more abstract ideas related to the topic. Make sure you give your opinions and also make sure you justify those opinions. Okay, so basically this is what concludes the speaking part of the IELTS test. Now, another thing that you have to keep in mind, okay, so what is being tested? What am I being evaluated on when I'm doing this part of the test? Well, the first thing I can tell you is vocabulary. Like I mentioned right now, it is important that you are able to highlight to the evaluator the range of words in which you express ideas. Also, like I said before, accuracy is very important. For example, your ability to form words, how you use prefixes and suffixes, the use of collocations, set phrases, and idioms. Here, it's also worth mentioning that you need to pay attention to tone, formality levels, and your register. And also how well you organize your ideas and how well you can reword an idea based on what the interviewer is asking you. In other words, your ability to paraphrase. Okay? The other issue or the other aspect that is being evaluated are your grammatical structures. Once again, what's the range of grammatical structures that you can manage, and what's the accuracy of those structures when you're speaking? There are different numbers of issues here, but one thing they really look into is how well you use your sentences. Okay, the length and complexity of your sentences. If you're using just simple sentences, or are you able to expand on that and make compound sentences or complex sentences using subordinate clauses, etc., right? So this is a lot to do with the accuracy of your sentence structures as well. One of the things I've noticed is that there's always some kind of issue between the subject and verb agreement, and just make sure that you expand and you're very creative and descriptive, but also expanding on your grammar. Okay, it's okay if you make some errors during the exam, because everyone makes errors, no one is perfect, but the examiner will be checking you in terms of if you make repeated basic errors, okay, or if you make errors only when you're using complex structures. So I mean, it's okay if you have a slip-up, because everyone has slip-ups, but just not fall into patterns of errors, because then these mistakes can add up and does have a negative impact on your score. Okay. The other thing is make sure that your sentences are always appropriate to the context. Okay. So this is basically the fundamental aspects of the IELTS speaking exam. In my next video, I will be talking about the aspects of pronunciation, intonation, register, and other issues regarding to speaking. But I hope that this serves you in a positive way and that it allows you to improve your score when you're doing the IELTS test. So I'll see you next time. Take care, and remember to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. Okay? Once again, my name is Daniel, and this is Daniel and MIKEL'S English lesson. I hope to see you soon. Please take care and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.